You ever get that feeling like you're trying to get better at something, level up in some area of your life, but figuring out how is like, I don't know, wandering through a maze in the dark?
Yeah, I know that feeling.
Well, today we're diving into a tool that can help shed some light on that path, continuous feedback loops.
Continuous feedback loops. Okay.
It's all about taking a structured approach to personal and professional growth.
Okay.
And our main guide for this deep dive is this document called Episode 6, Building Continuous Feedback Loops.
All right.
One of the key takeaways, and this is really catchy, is that what gets measured gets improved.
It's so true, though, isn't it? It's such a simple statement, but it really does get to the heart of how we can, well, take control of our own development, I guess. We can't just hope for improvement, right?
Right.
We need to actually make our progress tangible, like see it, measure it, and then use that information to guide our actions.
So let's unpack this idea of continuous feedback loops. What exactly are you talking about here?
So think of it like a cycle, a never-ending loop, where you're constantly learning and adapting.
Okay, a loop.
Yeah, so you begin by setting a clear goal, like what are you actually trying to achieve?
Right. Got to have a goal.
Then you take action. But here's the crucial part. You don't just like blindly charge ahead.
Gotcha.
You're continuously measuring your progress along the way,
Okay.
gathering feedback on what's working and what's not, and then you use that information to adjust your approach. So it's a constant process of refinement.
Okay, I'm seeing how this is more than just setting a New Year's resolution and just hoping for the best.
Exactly. It's way more than that. And actually, this idea has deep roots in like several fields.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for instance, you see it in Deming's PDCA cycle.
PDCA.
Yeah, it stands for Plan, Do, Check, Act. It's a classic management model for continuous improvement.
Interesting.
It's like a scientific approach to problem solving and growth, really. Then you have feedback control systems in engineering, where continuous monitoring and adjustment are like essential for maintaining stability and reaching desired outcomes. And even in behavioral psychology, the role of feedback is, recognized as crucial for learning and motivation.
Wow, so it's interesting how this concept has been around for a while, but in our like fast-paced world, it seems, I don't know, even more relevant today.
You're absolutely right. We're bombarded with information and options. And it can be super overwhelming trying to figure out what to focus on. But continuous feedback loops, they provide a framework,
Yeah.
for cutting through the noise and focusing on what truly matters.
Now, you mentioned measuring progress, and this is where KPIs or key performance indicators come into play, right?
Precisely. KPIs are the specific metrics you track to gauge your progress within the feedback loop.
Okay.
But choosing the right KPIs is absolutely critical.
Right, so how do we do that?
You need to make sure that your KPIs actually reflect that you're trying to achieve. Otherwise, you're just, drowning in a sea of data that doesn't actually tell you anything meaningful.
So it's not about measuring everything under the sun.
No.
It's about being strategic and choosing the metrics that truly matter. The example from the source about sales teams, that really drove that point home for me.
Yeah, a sales manager could simply measure the number of calls their team makes each day, right?
Yeah.
But that's a vanity metric.
Okay.
It doesn't actually tell you much about their effectiveness. What they really need to track are the deals closed and the revenue generated. Those are the KPIs that actually indicate success.
So we need to be careful not to fall into the trap of tracking things that are, easy to measure, but don't actually tell us if we're moving towards our goals.
That's exactly right. It's about focusing on the data that truly moves the needle.
Okay, so we've got this theoretical framework, but I think it would be helpful for our listener to see how this actually play out in the real world. Can we dive into some specific examples?
Absolutely. Let's start with something many of us are familiar with: software development.
Perfect. So how do software developers use continuous feedback loops?
Software development teams, particularly those using agile methodologies, they're like masters of this. They work in short cycles called sprints,
Sprints, okay.
with daily stand-up meetings where they, share progress, identify roadblocks, and adjust their plans based on what they're learning.
Okay.
And their KPIs are laser-focused. Things like the number of code commits, bug fixes, and user stories completed.
So even if you're not a developer, there's a lot we can learn from how these teams approach continuous improvement.
Absolutely.
It's about breaking down big goals into smaller, manageable chunks,
Right.
having regular check-ins to assess progress,
Uh-huh.
and clearly tracking what's getting done.
You've got it. It's all about creating a rhythm of action, measurement, and adjustment. Constantly refining your approach based on real-time feedback.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this can be applied to all sorts of projects. Let's shift gears to something even more relatable.
Okay, what's that?
Personal fitness.
Ah, yes. The world of fitness trackers and calorie counting apps.
Exactly. Those are actually like prime examples of continuous feedback loops in action.
Oh, interesting.
Think about it. You set a goal,
Okay.
like running a certain distance or losing a certain amount of weight.
Right.
You use your fitness tracker to collect data on your steps, calories burned, sleep patterns. Those are your personalized KPIs.
Makes sense.
The app analyzes that data and gives you feedback on your progress, and then you adjust your workout routine, your diet, your sleep schedule, and so on.
It's a perfect illustration of how technology can help us, engage in this process of continuous improvement. And the same principle could be applied to, I don't know, learning a new skill, building a new habit, or really any personal goal you set for yourself.
So it's not just about high-tech gadgets. It's about adopting this mindset of continuous improvement in any area of life where we want to see growth.
Exactly. It's about taking a conscious, structured approach to achieving our goals rather than just hoping for the best.
Now, the source doesn't shy away from the fact that implementing this in real life isn't always a walk in the park, right?
You're right.
There are some inherent challenges that come with continuous feedback loops.
Definitely. It's not a magic bullet, and there are some common pitfalls people run into. We can delve into those challenges and how to overcome them a little later.
So about those challenges, putting continuous feedback loops into practice, it isn't always easy. What are some of the things we need to watch out for?
Well, like we talked about earlier, choosing the right KPIs, that could be a real stumbling block. It's tempting to, I don't know, gravitate towards metrics that are easy to track, but don't actually give you any insight into whether you're actually making progress toward your goals.
Yeah, that makes sense. So any tips on how to avoid that? How do we make sure we're focusing on the metrics that truly matter?
Ask yourself this. When you're evaluating a potential KPI, if this number improves, will it directly contribute to achieving my overall goal?
Okay.
If the answer is no, then it's probably not the right thing to be obsessing over. Focus on the data that has a clear connection to the outcomes you want, the ones you're aiming for.
Okay, that's a really helpful guideline. What other challenges do people often run into with this?
Another common one is data overload.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we live in a world where data is just constantly flowing, right? And it's so easy to just get overwhelmed and paralyzed by trying to track everything.
I can definitely relate to that feeling. So how can we navigate all that without getting swept away?
Start small. Focus on the most impactful metrics. Don't try to track every single variable right out of the gate. Just choose a few key KPIs that are closely aligned with your goals. And just start there. You can always add more metrics later on as you get, more comfortable with the whole process. Remember, progress over perfection.
Right, progress over perfection.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're choosing of KPIs wisely, we're avoiding that data overload. What about the feedback itself? I mean, it's not always easy to receive criticism, even when it's, constructive. So how can we approach feedback in a way that actually helps us grow?
That's such a good point. It's totally human nature to, shy away from anything that feels like criticism, even if it's meant to help us.
Yeah.
But one of the most valuable mindset shifts you could make when you're working with continuous feedback loops is to see feedback as a learning opportunity, not a personal attack.
It's easier said than done, I think. But I see how adopting that perspective could make a huge difference. It's about reframing feedback as a tool for growth rather than, I don't know, a judgment on our worth.
Precisely. And this ties back to the idea of having a growth mindset, the belief that our abilities aren't fixed, but can be developed through effort and learning. And when you approach feedback with that mindset, it becomes less about feeling, judged and more about identifying areas where you can improve.
So it's about embracing that journey of continuous learning and improvement, understanding that setbacks and, challenges are all part of the process.
Exactly. It's not about striving for perfection, but rather about constantly striving to be, better than you were yesterday.
I like that. Now, I'm also wondering about the practical side of things. Life tends to throw us curveballs.
It does.
And maintaining the discipline to, consistently collect data, analyze feedback, and make adjustments. It can be tough when you're juggling all sorts of, priorities. So how can we make this process more sustainable in the midst of our busy lives?
Yeah, it's a real challenge for most people. And, it's important to remember that even small, consistent steps, those are better than grand plans that, quickly fizzle out.
Yeah.
It's about building habits and routines that support your growth, even when things get a little bit hectic.
So instead of like aiming for those radical overhauls, it's more about incorporating small, manageable changes that we can actually stick to over time.
You got it. It's those, small, consistent actions. You repeat them over time, and those lead to the most significant results.
As we've been, talking about all these ideas, it's striking to me how much continuous feedback loops connect to like these bigger themes of growth and learning that we often discuss.
Absolutely. It's not just a technique. It's a philosophy. It's a way of approaching life with this spirit of continuous learning and development.
Yeah. For example, we were just talking about the importance of a growth mindset, right?
Right.
And that's so central to how we approach feedback. It's about seeing feedback as a chance to evolve and improve, not a sign of failure.
Exactly. It's about shifting our perspective from, seeing setbacks as roadblocks to seeing them as opportunities for learning and growth.
And I see a strong connection to the agile methodology as
Oh,
well,
yeah.
which is all about embracing change and adapting to feedback and continuously iterating towards a better solution.
You're right. That iterative approach where you're, constantly testing, learning, and refining, that's at the heart of both agile and continuous feedback loops.
And then there's the Kaizen philosophy, which emphasizes the power of small incremental improvements over time. It's the idea that even seemingly insignificant changes, when applied consistently, can lead to remarkable results.
Kaizen is such a powerful reminder that, sustainable progress is often about making those consistent steps, day after day, rather than trying to achieve massive change, overnight.
So continuous feedback loops aren't just about optimizing, a specific process or project. They're about cultivating a mindset and a way of life that embraces continuous learning and improvement.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's about adopting a mindset that embraces experimentation, feedback, and constant iteration as the path towards achieving our goals.
Okay, I'm feeling inspired to put some of these ideas into practice, but I can also imagine our listener wondering how to actually get started with this. So what are some concrete steps they can take to bring continuous feedback loops into their own lives?
That's a great question, and it's one we'll address as we'll keep going as we wrap up our deep dive.
All right, so let's get into it. We've talked a lot about continuous feedback loops, the theory, real world examples, even the challenges that can pop up.
Right.
But now for our listener, I think the big question is how can they actually start using this powerful tool in their own lives?
It's a good question. I mean, it's great to understand the theory and everything, but the real magic happens when you actually put these ideas into practice. And the good news is it doesn't have to be, complicated.
So where do we even begin?
Well, the source says to start small. Like don't try to do too much all at once.
So like not overhauling our entire lives overnight, but picking one specific area.
Exactly. Like one thing you're really motivated to work on. Could be like a personal goal or a work project, even a relationship that you want to improve. And once you've found that area, then you got to define a clear goal, something you can actually measure.
So we know what success looks like.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what are you actually trying to achieve here?
So we got our focus and we've set a clear goal. Now what?
Now it's time to pick a few KPIs to help you track your progress. And remember, it's not about measuring, absolutely everything.
Right, we talked about that.
It's about those key metrics, the ones that'll tell you if you're actually moving toward your goal. You know what I mean?
Right. So once we have those KPIs in place, we need a system, a way to consistently collect the data and get feedback.
Yeah. And it doesn't, has to be anything fancy. Could be as simple as like a spreadsheet, a journal, even just like notes on your phone.
As long as it works.
Right. The important thing is having a method you can actually stick with.
Consistency is key. Those small actions over time, that's what makes the difference.
I couldn't agree more. And, you might even find that as you get used to this whole process, it starts to feel less like work, more like a natural part of growing,
Now, before we go, I want to leave our listener with something to think about. We talked about how continuous feedback loops, they're connected to these bigger ideas of growth and learning. And it made me wonder, if you focus on continuous feedback in one part of your life, could that have like a ripple effect on other areas, even if you're not, using the whole framework there?
That's a good question. I think it's possible when you get into that mindset of wanting to improve all the time, you kind of train yourself to be more aware, more open to feedback, more proactive about making changes. And those are skills that can help you in other parts of your life too.
Yeah, exactly. Like, let's say you decide to use continuous feedback to, I don't know, get more done at work. You start setting clear goals, breaking them down, tracking your progress. You might find that all that helps you with personal projects too, or even with improving your relationships.
Totally. It's like you're building up this mental muscle, for growth and improvement. And you can use it in different areas of your life.
So, listener, here's our challenge to you. Choose one thing you want to improve. Commit to using continuous feedback loops and just see what happens. Start small, be consistent, and enjoy the whole process. You might be surprised by the positive impact, not just in that one area, but across, different parts of your life.
And remember, this is a journey. There's always room to grow, new things to learn, always ways to tweak how you do things. It's never really finished.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into continuous feedback loops. We hope you learned some valuable insights and are ready to, start your own journey of continuous growth. Keep learning, keep trying new things, and keep those feedback loops spinning. We'll see you next time.